On this edition of the Marne Forward, we'll show you soldiers making history, bring you a wrap-up of the week's news, and give you a chance to meet Fox News correspondent Oliver North. All this and more coming up. Hello and welcome to this edition of the Marne Forward. I'm Specialist Rebecca Reyes reporting from Baghdad. Here's this week's Marne News Minute. Christmas in Iraq at the Multinational Division Center was filled with food, good cheer, and for many, a few hours off. Commanding General Rick Lynch spent Christmas Day visiting with soldiers throughout the theater. An Associated Press reporter who traveled with the general learned firsthand the progress that's been made throughout the Task Force Marne battle space. The AP quoted the general saying the people say security is good now. Later, General Lynch said,
"Right, the enemy. Over the course of the last 9 months, we've killed or captured about 4,000 of the enemy. We've taken away about 60 of their high-value individuals, their leaders, if you will. And as a result of that, we had great effect. But we couldn't have done that without the surge. So that was number one."
They're known as the Blackhearts, and their job December 15th through the 21st was to wrestle the small town of Kidder out of the hands of insurgents during Operation Dragoon. Soldiers from the 2nd Battalion, 502nd Infantry Regiment from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, worked with concerned local citizens to clear roads of improvised explosive devices and find hidden munitions. They patrolled roads and cleared buildings near Fair al-Jair, Iraq. Every day, things are improving in Salman Park. Even though there are still trouble spots, much has changed. One soldier, Staff Sergeant Robert Butler, believes that the security, economic improvement, and the favorable disposition of the citizens of Salman Park are all products of the sacrifice he and his fellow soldiers made to help secure and improve the town. And that's your Marne News Minute. Army Sergeant Crystal Cook has the story on one group of coalition soldiers from the Republic of El Salvador who are working to bring comfort to citizens of Wasat Province.
The El Salvadorian Army is providing humanitarian assistance to local residents in the Wasat Province, which is just south of Baghdad. These soldiers visit local villages several times a week. This week, they handed out wheelchairs and bags filled with food. They talk with local sheikhs in the area about security. These soldiers are getting to know their neighbors. The El Salvadorian commander said that his soldiers share some of the same history with the Iraqis.
And of course we feel really good when we organize this type of activity. We have similar situations in some areas of our country, and we know how necessary this type of activity is.
A few miles down the road, the Salvadorians stopped to check on a water pump project. This project will bring clean water to over 10,000 residents in the area. The Salvadorians are working with local contractors to rebuild the poorly neglected structure. El Salvador is the only country in Central America that provides personnel to support Operation Iraqi Freedom.
I think we are that country that can comprehend them more, because we lived in internal war for 12 years, and we had many similar problems like they have here.
These humanitarian missions continue to bridge the gap between locals and coalition forces. Reporting from Fob Delta, I'm Army Sergeant Crystal Cook.
After a break, we'll meet a Fox News correspondent and bring you a story on medics who are giving local children the gift of mobility. Welcome back. His name is Oliver North. He's a combat-decorated Marine, author, former U.S. counterterrorism coordinator, and host of the Fox News Network's War Stories. In December, North spent 23 days in Iraq reporting on the war. I caught up with him in Baghdad. Here's just some of what he had to say. For you personally, what's the most important lesson that you're going to take away from this experience?
That my grandchildren will not have to worry about a 9/11. That this country is not going to be a haven for radical Islamic terror. That other countries in the region are going to look at the experiment that's taken place here with remarkable Americans and brave Iraqis who stood up and said, no, We want this country to be something better than what it was. And my grandchildren are going to have a safer world to live in because of that.
So, sir, 10 years from now, when you're sitting around with your grandchildren, what are you going to tell them about the soldiers that fought here?
Well, I'd like to see them. I've got 9 grandsons, and I would like to see them serve their country. Hopefully not in as much duress as we've experienced here in the last 5 years. But it's an honorable profession. It doesn't have to be for a lifetime. But it's a wonderful thing for a person to experience. They'll go places that they otherwise might never have gone. They'll build relationships with others that are forged in a crucible in some cases that will last them the rest of their lives. And my wife and children don't understand the relationship that I have with Jim Leonard, who was my radio operator in Vietnam. He and I spent the length of a handset cord for 9 months, day and night, next to each other. That relationship is precious to me, and it is to him, and it is to the other guys that have survived even to this day, 40 years later in civilian life. And what I would hope you would do is when you go back and tell your grandchildren is, yeah, I was part of something bigger than me. I was part of something that made a part of the world safer. I was part of something that made America a safer place to be. And every one of the soldiers in Task Force Marne can say that to their grandchildren. I can say to mine, I can say to them, I let them tell their story. I put them on Fox News and a War Stories documentary that showed a remarkable effort being put forth starting in March of 2003, all the way up to 5 years of this, and they changed the country for the good. And I'll be able to say, yep, you go ahead and get that DVD from Amazon.com or wherever Fox is selling it, and you can see the history that you helped make. Your general is famous for having said that there's 2 kinds of people in the world. And I was standing next to General Lynch when he said this on one occasion. He said, to a young soldier who was re-enlisting, he said, you know, there's 2 kinds of people in this world, those who read history and those who make history. Well, the soldiers of Task Force Marne have made history. And I chided him later on. I said, well, there's other kinds of people. There's people who write history. And I get to do that, too.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Soldiers across Task Force Marne received many gifts this holiday season, but they also did a little giving. More than 20 disabled children were carried into the medical clinic to receive their gift, a new wheelchair. For many of them, this would be the first one they'd ever received. All of the children were identified by soldiers during patrols in the surrounding communities.
Our patrols, as they have been going around our area, have been finding these children and giving the names to our civil affairs unit to bring. We have given out a few of the wheelchairs on kind of a one-on-one basis, but not anything that I've been directly involved in.
Each chair had to be fitted to the size and needs of the individual child. Parents looked on as soldiers made the adjustments that would allow their children to ride comfortably. The 25 chairs that were made available for distribution were donated by Wheelchairs for Iraqi Kids, with the help of similar organizations in the U.S. A contractor with KBR, Brad Blossom, started the program in 2001 and spends his free time helping to organize these events.
There's so much good. There's so much good that can be done here with somebody who will just make themselves available and do a little coordination with people back in the States to bring stuff over. I honestly don't know how I can go home.
Since 2001, Wheelchairs for Iraqi Kids has given out more than 150 wheelchairs, and another 200 are on the way. Thanks for watching this edition of our newscast. From all of us here at Task Force Marne, Camp Victory, Iraq, I'm Specialist Rebecka Reyes, Rock of the Marne.